No, don't do it!
Alright class, welcome back to FPL School by your boy, Big and Boy. And this is episode 3, how to build the best FPL team to score big points. Building an FPL team is quite simple. Building a great FPL team, not simples. Your team could contain the 4 highest scoring players for the entire season, and you've kept them all season. Bad team. Or your team could contain the most expensive player in the game on your bench every week, whilst you're just playing all of the cheap boys every week. A good team. There's a bunch of different things that can make a team good or bad. These include the balance of the team, the price of the players, your strategy and approach, the fixture run of your players, but most importantly, your opinion. Yep, that is right. If you can convince yourself you've got a good team, then you've got a good team, hey! But maybe your opinion can be a bit more accurate if you learn why each of these things are quite important to your team. So let's do that, shall we? Well, to put it quite simple, to make a good FPL team, all of your players in your team need to be good. But what makes a good FPL player? Because a good player doesn't necessarily mean a good FPL player. Now that question can be answered in a bunch of different ways, so let's go through it position by position, building the perfect player to score all of the points. Goalkeeper. The goalkeeper can be one of the most important positions in FPL, mainly because you probably don't want to think about it too much. They are usually priced between 6 million and 4 million, 6 million being classed as the premiums, 5.5 to 5 million being the mid-priced ones, 4.5 million are the budget boys, and even some at 4.0 million as well. The premiums are the ones that play for the bigger teams, but not necessarily in the better defences, but then again, the bigger teams do usually have better defences anyway, but not guaranteed. The mid and budget ones are just the normal starters for the other teams, and the 4 millions are usually the ones that are just backups for their teams, so you can just kind of chuck them to the side now. They hardly ever play. But the common misconception with goalkeepers in FPL, and what's different with them compared to every other position in FPL, is that the more expensive ones usually don't score the most points. What? Absolutely crazy! This being due to the way keepers score points. Well, they score points from getting a clean sheet, which nets 4 points, saves, which nets them 1 extra point for every 3 saves they make in a game, but also 5 points for a pen save as well. Oh, lovely. And also bonus points, which they will only be on if they are making those saves. They do get goals and assist points too, but when does a goalkeeper ever do that? Shut up, Allison! So the dream goalkeeper in FPL, and the one that will score you all of the points, is one that needs to make a lot of saves, hopefully 3+ every game for those extra +1 points every time, meaning they need to be in a team that concedes enough shots for them to be able to save. Also, keep clean sheets at the same time, getting 4 extra points for every one of them, meaning they need to be in a team good enough to keep the clean sheets, but also be a player that is higher up in the bonus point system than his other teammates, meaning they need to be in a team that don't actually score too many goals, as goals and assists are weighed much heavier than goalkeeper saves in the bonus point system. So the less goals, the more chance a bonus for goalkeepers. And that is actually it. Quite simple, right? As we need a good goalkeeper to be in a bad enough team to concede shots, but a good enough keeper to save those shots, in a team also good enough to keep clean sheets, but also bad enough to not score too many goals. Yeah, okay, maybe not that simple, is it? But this kind of situation can, and actually does happen a lot. And very, very, very great news, absolutely fantastic news actually, is that this kind of dream scenario actually happens more often with the cheaper goalkeepers, way! As the premium goalkeepers are not only making less saves because their defence are better, but they usually score a lot more goals, so their attackers are the ones getting the bonus points as well, meaning the premium goalkeepers usually only score around 6 points every game. Meanwhile, the cheaper ones, if he's making all the saves, all the bonus and all that, they can get a lot more every game. Now this is a tried and tested situation as well, with Emi Martinez matching this dream scenario almost too perfectly last year, scoring a whopping 186 points last season. Like, that is just absolute madness. Meslier was also similar with 154 points, and Pope also did very well the season before, getting 170 points with a similar scenario. But all of those actually all started at 4.5 million. Whoa, that is the way to go. So that is the main reason the best keepers could actually be the cheapest, and why it is a common strategy by most to just go for the cheaper keepers, as even though it's not guaranteed, right, you could potentially get more points for less money. So why would you not go for it? That is absolutely spankingly good. But also, when looking for a keeper on your bench, it's almost always worth it just sticking a 4.0 million one on there, as goalkeepers don't usually get dropped or rotated as much as you know, so you probably don't have to have a backup, but also it's just another way to save money. Hey, we love money! But it is also a strategy to have another 4.5 million keeper on your bench who could play play over your main goalkeeper if he has a better fixture, or maybe just some extra cover if your main goalkeeper turns a bit wibbly wobbly and needs someone else, you know? But basically, don't spend that much on goalkeepers. Defenders. Defenders can be some of the best value and greatest assets in FPL. They range from 7+ million to 4 million, with 7+ to 6 million-ish being premiums, 5.5 to 5 million being the mid-ranged, 4.5 million being the brilliant budgeters, and some 4.0 millions in there too as well. The scaling of prices in defence usually goes attacking fullbacks are the more expensive ones, and the centre-backs for the same team are either the same or slightly below, with the overall price of defenders also being determined by the team they are playing for, as the more expensive ones are playing for the Liverpools, Chelseas, Man Cities. But sometimes the 4.5 million defenders are the best value players in the entire game and sometimes could even outscore the big boys as well. And then the 4.0 million ones are here again, usually not starters and are backups for their team, but sometimes there is a chance that some of them could play. Woo. They score points from goals, where they actually receive the most points out of any FPL position with 6 points for a goal there. But to be fair, yeah, you're not really expecting a defender. You're not expecting a Harry Maguire to get the golden boot anytime soon, are we? Probably not. Assists reward them the 3 as usual. Clean sheets netting 4 just like goalkeepers, and also the bonus points too. Now the dream defender can vary quite a bit for the price range you're looking at, but they are usually the ones that are very attacking and get all of the goals and assists, and maybe even on set pieces to help that as well, but also get a lot of clean sheets. We want an attacking defender in a team keeping clean sheets. It's literally as easy as that. Now, defenders who get an attacking return, like a goal or an assist, in the same game they keep a clean sheet, are also usually higher up on the bonus point system as well, and very likely to get bonus if they have those too. Which is the reason the premiums are the premium, because those are the teams probably more likely to keep a clean sheet. So if they do that and a defender gets on a goal or assist, they are definitely on the bonus. But some 4.5 million and even 5 million defenders can sometimes way outscore the rest and just be amazing value players as well. So definitely don't chuck those in the bin. Those could be great. And also, fullbacks are usually favoured over centre-backs in FPL, as they are probably going to be the ones more attacking and at least are a bit easier to predict if they will get something in a game. But there are some centre-backs that have such a great goal threat from corners, they are great as well. And when choosing defenders for your bench, it does kind of depend on your formation and strategy, as if you do plan on a few cheap defenders that you rotate every now and again, depending who's got the best fixture, when, you know, it changes. But it is also okay going for 4.0 million one in there as well, as you never know, you choose the right one and he could well play every now and again and get you all of the points. But also, he saves you money away! Midfielders. Midfielders are usually the biggest big boys in FPL, not just costing the most, but usually scoring the most points as well. They usually range between 12+ million and 4.5 million. 12+ to around 9 million are premium, 8.5 to 5.5 is around mid-range, and 5 to 4.5 are the budgeters. The premiums are usually the main goal scorers and point scorers here, for the biggest of the big boy teams as well. The mid-range are either lower quality players in the same team as the premiums, or they are the best players for the lower quality teams. And the budgeters are either youngsters coming through or defensive midfielders. And I'm going to mention this straight away, defensive midfielders are terrible options in FPL, where even if they are amazing players in real life, if they are not scoring those goals and assists, they're not going to get you any FPL points, so please social distance away from them and don't get them in your team. But midfielders score points by scoring goals, which gets them 5 points, which is 1 less than defenders, but also 1 more than forwards. Oh, whoa, spoiler, we haven't got to them yet. Assists get them the 3 as usual, but they also get 1 point for a clean sheet as well. And also the bonus points too. So they are actually a very nice in-between of defenders and forwards, rewarding you a slightly more for the goals, but also a point for a clean sheet as well, which is absolutely lovely stuff. The dream FPL midfielder is quite relative to the position again, so probably won't have all of what I'm about to mention, but pretend this one is more of a checklist, and if they have most of them, then they are a very sexy option indeed. Where those things include being one of the main goal scorers for their team, much like a Salah, but not like a Declan Rice. Being the main creators for their team, much like a De Bruyne, but not like a John Joe Shelvey. Being one of the most attacking players, either a winger or an attacking mid for their team, much like a Son, but not like an N'Golo Kante. Being a nailed-on player who will play most of the game, even if they can, much like a Bruno, but not like a Foden. Being on set pieces, penalties, free kicks and corners and all that, as there's much more chance to be involved, much like a James Ward-Prowse, but not like a Mark Noble. And finally, being involved in all of the attacks in open play frequently, as if they are not always there and ready to get the goals and assists, they're never going to get the goals and assists. much like a Sterling, but not like an Ndidi. And that is pretty much it. Now, most of the big boy premiums here will cover almost all of these, which is the main reason they are so expensive, right? But then there are some cheap players for lower teams where, given a good run of fixtures, could even score similar FPL points or even more, you never know, such as the likes of Grealish, Maddison and Rafinha. Now, most of these are usually wingers or very attacking players in their team, so it's always usually better to go for them and stay away from the centre mids and the defensive mids in your team, as it's very hard to predict when they will get a goal, as they're probably not involved in most attacks for their team. But when looking for a midfielder to chillax on your bench, the bench player, if it is someone you don't plan on playing and bringing in when they have good fixtures, it is definitely worth it to go for a 4.5 million price one there, as like I mentioned earlier, there will be ones that play every single game, even at 4.5 million, so they are ones you can rely on and cover you if you really need to, but also allows you to save all of the money. Forwards. And finally, the goal scoring forwards, and the ones usually at the heart of the attack. They are priced between 12 million to 4.5 million. 12 plus to 9 million would be premium. 8.5 to 6 is mid-range, and 5.5 and under are the budget boys again, where they may get some minutes, but they're definitely not first choice. There aren't too many premium forwards usually, but the ones that are usually the ones playing for bigger teams and also on penalties. Then the mid-range ones contains most teams forward, even some of the bigger teams forwards, who can sometimes do just as well, or if not better. And then the budget ones are basically there to just fill your bench. Yeah, don't touch them in your starting team yet. But the forwards score points from goals, where they get the least points from a goal out of any position. And then the goal scorers with only 4. Oh, come on, that's not fair. Assists are 3 as usual. And absolutely nothing for clean sheets. Ah, boring. So yeah, this is why they get less points than midfielders. But they also get bonus points, with forwards actually being weighted heavier on the bonus points for goals they score. So when a forward does score a goal, this can more often than not lead to some bonus points on top of that as well. With a dream FPL forward is someone who is the main goal scorer for their team. Someone that when you see a goal notification from a specific team, you think of that one player, them who's scoring. Being involved in assists and creating chances as well, as not only another way to be involved in points, but they're more likely to be on the bonus if they are creating chances as well. Playing every single minute, as it is a bit harder to score goals if you don't start the game or if you get relegated to the bench after 70 minutes. Being on penalties as just an extra thing to have, as an extra bit of cover, as well as just being a very good goal scorer, where they might be a player you just won't be surprised by if they get that hat-trick. Now, forwards are actually quite a bit weird though, as a particular forward might not have most of these things, but still ends up being a great FPL option. As at the end of the day, if they are getting goals, they are getting you points. For the bench though, either have a quite cheap one to rotate in and out depending on the fixtures, or most of the times just stick to a 4.5 million one in there, as they could still get you minutes, but again, they're there just to save you all of the money. And that is that. You now know exactly what makes a good player in every single position, where every single one of your starting players in your FPL team should have most of what we just talked about there, and then there you go, you have a pretty good team already. But you might not have the perfect FPL team. So now let's go through some actual team tips, shall we? On how to have great balance and just an overall great squad. But honestly, the main thing to make your team good is just every player to be good in it. It literally is. But the best team tips I have for you is have a great starting 11. Most people will put most of their money, time and thought into a solid 11 starters. And then all of the bench players are nice and cheap ones that you can rely on if you have to, but are the cheaper ones. This allows you to get in the more expensive players into your starting team, which should result in better players, right? It doesn't always, but it should. But also, you don't want to have cheap players in your starting 11 as well as what we call enablers, because even if it enables you to have more premium players, it is usually better to spread out the money a little bit, as 2 mid-price players will usually outscore 1 big premium and 1 player that's not getting any points. So make sure all of your starting players are very, very good and you could get all the points every week. Attack the best fixtures. A player might not be the best of options throughout the entire season, but if they are going to do well, they will probably do well against the worst teams. So it's a good idea to plan your transfers and players around targeting the best and easier fixtures, which is obviously a very dynamic thing in FPL, as teams could improve or get worse and all that, So owning a player for a good fixture run and then moving off when the fixtures get bad is a good thing to do. Having good players always play the harder teams, probably won't get you too many points too. But also, don't just look at fixtures, you know? I would say target the great fixtures when buying players, but if a player is doing that well, you might have to think about it a bit more if you're going to sell him, even if he's got tough fixtures, if he's doing that well. But you should always try and target the best fixtures. Use your money wisely. Be like Mr. Krabs off SpongeBob. Money, money. As at the end of the day, you're on a budget, so make sure to spend it in the best way you can. That's not to say have the bare minimum cheapest players on your bench and make sure all of your good players are expensive and nice ones, but it is more to say don't be wasting too much money on your bench players, especially if you know you're not going to play them. Like none of this having a 5 million goalkeeper or defender on the bench just to sit there forever and never play. Squeeze out as much money as you can, as there are always great cheap options for backup anyway. Flexibility. How's your flexibility, lads? Can you do the splits? But being able to be flexible in your FPL team is one of the main things that will help you keep consistent throughout the entire season. If you have 3 of the most expensive players in your team and you say no matter what you are not selling them, it may stop you from getting in a bunch of other great players as you now can afford it. But also you might do the opposite and spread out your money a bit too much. When now, if you want an expensive player doing well, it might require 3 or 4 transfers, which just isn't very flexible, is it? It's always a good idea to be able to get in any player within 2 transfers, taking into account the players you want to sell as well. The best way to do this is just don't be close-minded with your team. Don't say, I'm having this team structure, I'm not changing it. Don't say, I'm keeping this player no matter what, even if he doesn't do well. You should be as open-minded as possible, as FPL is a very dynamically changing game and scenarios change very quickly. Always have a plan when moving through the game weeks. This could include choosing your captain weeks in advance, so you don't just get into a game week and you're like, oh dear, who the heck do we even captain? I didn't plan for this. You also don't want to be in a situation where you have tripled up on an attack for a team, and you have also tripled up on a defense for a team, and those are your only defenders, and then next week they're playing against each other. You're in a bit of trouble. As you also should make decisions last minute without thinking about your potential moves in the next few game weeks. As you might think, oh, this player's not got a good fixture, I'm going to transfer him out, and then next week he has an amazing fixture. Always plan ahead. Your goals. At different parts of the season, you might want to try and switch up your approach based on your goals. If you are ahead in the mini league, you might want to play it a bit more safe and make sure you have similar players as everyone else. As if you have the higher owned and similar players, it is very hard for someone to catch you up. But maybe you're quite a bit behind and trying to catch up someone else, and you have a very similar team to them. You might need to get in some different players and low owned players to be able to catch them up. And also, who you captain can depend on your goals too, so just make sure you understand what you're trying to go for. But usually, it is best to just try and play your own game. Don't make any decisions based on anybody else's team. Just go for the players you think will score all of the points, but also maybe some of these other factors can come into play every now and again. And finally, have a team that will score you points. So hey, very simple, right? You don't want a team that has a lot of great players, but not necessarily great FPL options. You need players who are playing all the time, getting all the goals and assists and clean sheets, and all of that juicy stuff. Now that is a lot easier said than done, right? But if you follow all of my tips I just mentioned here, you will probably be on the right track. And that is actually it on how to build the best team. A great balanced team that will hopefully score all of the points. But very quickly, I'm going to give you an example team covering a lot of the things I just mentioned, and just show you how great a team can actually be. And that team looks like this. So in goals, we've gone for 2 cheap goalkeepers who, like I mentioned earlier, have the potential to be up there for points, even though they're down there for price. I've gone for 2 of them, mainly because it gives you an extra backup option if one of them is either injured, performing bad, or even dropped. But it also allows me to target the fixtures a bit more, as Game Week 1 and Game Week 2, Sanchez has amazing fixtures, but then in Game Week 3, he plays Everton. Meanwhile, Dubravka in Game Week 3 plays Southampton. Much better and could potentially increase your chances of the clean sheets. But also, having both of these increases my flexibility, as I can quite easily downgrade one of them if I need money for someone else, as I might not be able to afford that move, but with this I can. Then in defence, I've gone for one very expensive fella in a Trent Alexander-Arnold, as not only is he amazing attacking wise, but also could get all of the clean sheets in those amazing fixtures to start the season with. We then have one mid-priced one in a Digne, who is much like a mini Trent and also has great fixtures. But then our other 2 potential starting defenders are 2 4.5 million price ones, where they both have great fixtures for the first few weeks, but also some other hard ones in there as well. So with this, every week I can look at both of them, choose whatever one has the best fixtures and start him that week, and then keep the other one on my bench. Which not only gives me a great backup option if someone else in my squad doesn't play, it also means I'm not spending too much money at keeping that budget intact for my main players. Exercising this point even more, we've got a 4 million defender in there that will just sit last on our bench, but is only 4 million, so we aren't wasting our money. Our midfield then contains 2 main premium boys, who who are quite damn expensive, but those are the ones we can rely on, right? And ones that will probably be my captain for the first few weeks as well. So the price is justified a bit more there. Grealish is in here as a slightly higher price mid-range midfielder, who is also here to target the really good opening 3 fixtures, but due to his fixtures turning a bit wibbly-wobbly after that, we could use him for some flexibility, downgrading to someone else who might have had a very good start and we might want to jump on them. Which is part of my plan all along, as I have planned ahead. We also have another but cheaper starting midfielder here in Jack Harrison, who has been selected because he has a lower ownership but could still do just as good, or if not better, than some of the other alternatives. We also have a bench midfielder who only costs 4.5 million here, who will likely sit second on my bench and someone I can rely on if I really need to. But again, not wasting any money. Then up front, we've got the 3 great players here, all with great fixtures at the very beginning. With DCL great for the first 10 plus games or so it's worth spending that bit of extra money on him. Watkins is great for the first 3, but then could be moved on to someone else with a plan. And then Tony being the more budget-friendly one, but could still get all of the goals at the start of the season. And if we chose this team for Game Week 1, it could look like this. So the team there has a great starting 11, but still has great backup options as well. But again, not using too much money for those backups. We are attacking all of the best opening fixtures here with a plan to remove some of them when the fixtures get worse. We also have a player at each price point with a premium defender, mid-range and budget one in there. Premiums, mid-range and budget in the midfield. And then 3 admittedly closer price but still spread out price players in the forwards, which allows us all the flexibility as I know who I need to downgrade or upgrade if I want to get somebody a similar price, but also means I have some structure so I just know where my money is. And then finally, we have the players that are all currently guaranteed to start for their teams with not too many risks here, as we don't want to be forcing ourselves into problems straight away at the start of the season. And that is it. So you should now all know how to build a great squad and what kind of players you will need in your team to get all of the FPL points. This has been episode 3 of FPL School, how to build the best team possible. Something like that. Make sure to turn up to the next class or you getting a bit of a spanking.
Don't be a cheeky scrub. Subscribe to Nathan Bacon right now. Don't let your memes be dreams.